everyone loves creature features, especially when you've got monsters so huge they could easily qualify as gods. I mean, at this point, guys like Godzilla have multiple cults all over the world, so it ain't as far-fetched as you'd imagine. Anyway, the TV region knows how much you love deadly beasts, so today I'm presenting the top 25 times when giant monsters went god mode in the movies. I know this one's fresh in the cinemas, but I just had to include it because it would have been a criminal offence not to. I did just mention Godzilla, so I'm sure you can expect to see him a few more times in this video. As far as the -1 version goes, it's amazing to see how they made a beast so brutal, and that too much with a minuscule budget of just under $15 million. Yeah, that's less than Robert Downey Jr.'s base fees for playing Iron Man. I don't need to explain why Godzilla is a god amongst the monsters of his cinematic universe, and his atomic breath has always been a standout whenever he's shown up in a movie. The franchise is around 70 years old now, and we never grow tired of seeing that giant blue blast of energy tearing through anything that's in its way. The atomic breath from -1 is so different, and I'd go on to say that it's actually one of the deadliest blasts I've ever seen in my entire life. Bro created a mushroom cloud so big even the civilians were amazed by its destruction. The build-up and eventual release are so perfectly synced, and you can see the genuine desire to destroy everything in Godzilla's actions. Seeing this in theaters must have been a blast, and that wasn't an intended pun. It goes without saying that King Ghidorah is an S-tier opponent for Godzilla. His legacy goes way back to the 1960s. Bro literally has a film named after him. So when we learned that he was going to be the main villain in The King of Monsters, we were hyped. The studio did us proud by giving us a few encounters between Godzilla and King Ghidorah, and the special effects in all of these sequences were freaking beautiful. The new MCU can learn a thing or two from these scenes, especially the final battle between the two competing King of Monsters. To be honest, I was rooting for Ghidorah to show some dominance, but I didn't expect him to flex this hard. Our man Godzilla was doing pretty well on his own at first, even with a little assist from Mothra, but then the three-headed dragon decided to use a cheat code and absorbed all that energy from the power station. Man, watching him unleash that giant electrical blast really gave me goosebumps. It was like watching the monster version of Satan at work. Our man Godzilla started getting wrecked after that, so you gotta give credit where it's due. Don't worry, this isn't going to be a Godzilla fan service video, okay? There are plenty of other giant monsters out there. 2018's The Meg gave us a pretty good beast to fear, and the best part about it is that the Megalodon isn't some fantasy creature born out of a creative mind. This thing actually used to exist millions of years ago, so all I can say is that I'm glad I wasn't around back then. The shark genre in monster flicks hasn't always been much of a success since Steven Spielberg's eternal classic Jaws. Sure, there were occasional mini-hits like Deep Blue Sea, but the Meg ended up giving us a great dose of entertainment and even went on to generate a sequel. If we want to talk about God mode moments here, then look no further than the scene where the main Meg ends up demolishing the side Meg in 10 business seconds. You'd imagine someone like Jason Statham's Jonas should have been a bit more careful considering he had a giant shark bleeding from his boat, but that's alright because we wouldn't have got this moment otherwise. The sheer power of this mega shark is outstanding. Bro ate his little brother and tilted a whole yacht as if it was just a daily morning jog. After the first two movies in this franchise, people would have easily made the mistake to assume that Godzilla was our friend and saviour. True, that is his role for Mother Earth, and he does put in a lot of effort in general, but he also had to remind everyone that he's not a slave to humanity. His rampage in Pensacola is the perfect example of this, as we see him unleashing god-level powers while destroying the Mechagodzilla project. It genuinely felt as if the humans messed up and angered the deity that they were supposed to worship. There was no mercy on display, and the King of the Monsters definitely had no intentions of leaving behind any survivors. You can use as many defensive measures as you want, but you ain't stopping this dude. Essentially, this is the tone that he was always supposed to establish, especially when he was first created back in the 1950s. Modern fans say this was Godzilla behaving more aggressively than usual, but I believe he was continuing his role as defender of the Earth by trying to rid the world of Florida rather than Mechagodzilla. God bless you, bro. Wait, does that mean I just asked Godzilla to bless himself?
They
seen 2008's Cloverfield, then you probably got the closest idea of what it would be like to have a giant monster rampaging in your city. The production name given to this massive beast is Clover, which I think is too cute for a dude like him, but then again, I didn't make the movie. I think the minimalism in terms of showing the monster is what helped this found footage film because it always kept us on our feet wondering when Clover would show up next. He ain't just a monster for show either. Bro is unstoppable, even after getting bombed multiple times. This scene is such a grade A flex that it made everyone's hopes of a happy ending go down the drain. Say what you want about how talkative HUD is, as far as the guy who's about to die trope goes, I don't think I've heard anything more realistic. I'd probably be begging and babbling just like HUD was right before the crash. Also, here's some trivia for you. Neville Page was the creature designer who made Clover. He also designed the engineers in Prometheus and the Ikran for Avatar. He's one of the people that made me glad I was born in this era. Okay, let me just start this entry by saying one thing. Watching Optimus Prime ride a three-headed dragon robot as if he's the alpha male version of Khaleesi was easily the highlight of this whole movie. Bro was riding an AI Ghidorah as if it's nothing, and then he went on to make Infernicus look like some cheap side villain, which he technically was, but not at such low level. If you're thinking why I've included an Autobot in a Giant Monsters video, well, let's just say that I consider alien robots to be monsters too, even if they're the good guys. Justifying the God mode aspect won't be much of a problem because, damn, just look at how effortlessly Optimus slices through all those robots with just one swing. The flex at the end was also S tier. Everyone should know who the leader of the Autobots is. I also want to shout out the sudden attack on Megatron towards the end of the sequence. Our man ends up dominating the battle, and I love how he blatantly insults the Decepticon leader right before kicking him out of his own ship. Yeah, these movies don't need a cohesive story if they can give us action sequences like this one. We've had quite a few Godzilla entries so far. Now let's look at the other half of the Monarch monster universe, King Kong. Skull Island was an effective way to include him into the latest franchise, and I really enjoyed the helicopter scene in particular. Now keep in mind that he's still a teenager here, so he's still not a full size yet, even though he's made to look that way with how he's placed right in front of the sun. The rampage he goes on after getting attacked goes on to show how deadly he can be, but also reminds us that he loses his mind after getting provoked. I love how for the first few minutes of the scene we see the highest amount of fear, shock and disbelief from any of the characters from the King Kong films until now. The build-up is tense and becomes a lot more convincing due to the helicopter radio calls we hear, the character reactions, slow-motion shots, and the priceless response Kong has in the end. Oh yeah, and I might not be an expert when it comes to identifying giant monsters, but is that a monkey? Shouldn't be your primary cause of concern when you see King Kong. You remember the Skull Crawlers, right? The previous entry did just cover the movie that introduced them, but they're not the focus of attention here. Mechagodzilla was carefully constructed and powered up for years in order to be able to combat someone like Godzilla, so it goes without saying that the other monsters shouldn't be a concern to him. We see that in full flow when he ends up slicing one of those bad boys in half just for the sake of a pilot testing project. Bro, this was the same beast that gave King Kong a run for his money, although I'm still not sure if it's a fully grown one. Anyway, I don't think that would have mattered because Mechagodzilla tears through it faster than I can tear a piece of paper. The laser blast was pretty epic and grand, but it was the way in which the Skull Crawler was held that made it seem like an unholy monster crucifixion. Only difference is that Mechagodzilla leaves no room for any resurrections. Bros like the Hulk making other monsters look puny. Shout out to whoever designed this absolute unit, it really was an impressive design. Man, this is the era of Peter Jackson films that made my childhood very special. The Gen Z kids might be used to the new King Kong, but to me, I was introduced to the giant gorilla back in 2005's film of the same name. Now, this Kong wasn't just a perfect personality, but also sized appropriately to make sure Anne doesn't get reduced to a small white speck. Of course, there's the emotional angle as well, but I'm here to cover God mode moments, so I'm going to focus on the rampage in New York. It's a perfectly constructed scene as we get to see Kong react to the sudden environment that he's been put in around all these fancy socialites. Breaking free was just the starting point, because what happens after this is total chaos. It literally felt like the folks of the city were paying the price for the sins committed by Carl and his men, and it just goes to show that you should never mess with nature, especially if it comes in the form of a giant ape. It was a funny little gag to see Kong picking up women on the street to see if they were Anne. I can understand, buddy. I'd be going crazy too if I wanted to find Naomi Watts. If it's got anything to do with giant monsters, then I'm definitely going to include dinosaurs one way or another. The ultimate film in this genre is, without a doubt, 1993's Jurassic Park, but 2015's Jurassic World wasn't too bad when it came to the dinosaur sequences. The plot and the continuity errors are obvious criticisms, because I still can't get over Bryce Dallas Howard running with those heels on, that too from a freaking Tyrannosaurus Rex. However, the fight that follows this sequence is probably recorded in the holy bible for dino believers. Watching Rexy take on the Indominus Rex was an amazing visual spectacle, and with the blue coming in at the last minute to provide an assist, this scene became an instant classic. Want to know how popular this encounter is? It's got over 340 million views from its official clip on YouTube. Even Drake couldn't pull off views like that anymore. The overall battle is as good as any epic monster sequence can get, and the final Mosasaurus attack in the end was sneaky, but also made for the perfect icing on the cake. I know the Indominus is supposed to be the bad guy here, but just look at what was needed to beat her. A team of 3 Velociraptors, an aging T-Rex, human sniper support, and a sneak attack from a Mosasaur finally took her down. Yeah, that's an elite beast if I ever saw one.
I've had enough. Time to show you the real power of the Prime.
Optimus Prime hits up once again in a scene that truly captures the essence of his powers. The final battle in 2023's Rise of the Beasts gave us a lot to cheer for, especially when Optimus destroys Scourge as if he's a worthless piece of garbage. This dude was supposed to be the toughest opponent protecting Unicron, but he was reduced to a bunch of spare parts thanks to the real power of a Prime. Man, that literally sent chills down my spine, because it's delivered with so much class and authority, just like that of a god. Peter Cullen's owned this role ever since he first took it on right from the animated series. Bro's been voicing Optimus from the 80s and keeps getting better with time. Can you believe this man is 82 years old and still going strong? I don't think I could ever accept anyone else as the king of the Autobots if he retires from the role. Wait, I almost forgot to mention how he ends up destroying Unicron with his own hands. I'm not sure who writes his dialogues, but Optimus has got some of the most badass quotes of all time. Godzilla Minus One might have the deadliest looking atomic breath from the looks of the promotional clips, but I've got to place Shin Godzilla higher up the list because he operates on a completely different level. This is the most creative incarnation of the atomic breath we've witnessed to date. They actually make it more like a plasma cutter, slicing and setting fire to an entire city. I mean, bro's releasing lasers from his scales too. I've not seen any other variant of the kaiju do this. What's really frightening is that while other movies show the atomic breath as a somewhat generic laser beam, Shin Godzilla creates this visible scaling that starts with a heat cloud, builds up to fire, and keeps scaling up to become plasma energy. So the whole city is already burning before the breath ignites into a laser form. This is the stuff that gods are made of. The color grading on the blast is also pretty cool. Maybe that's why the new Godzilla has a neon pink glow to his own atomic breath. Either way, this scene just goes on to further cement the fact that the Japanese are the true masters of their own craft. We've all seen the normal Transformers change from vehicles and even monsters to robots, but have you ever seen 3 monsters transform with tons of mini monsters to become a big daddy monster? That's exactly what happens in the final battle between the Jaegers and the Kaijus in Pacific Rim Uprising. Now, I don't agree with a lot of the plot points in this film, but then again, the actual story was never the focus of this movie. The Mega Kaiju's transformation alone felt like a victory because the way he towers over all the other Jaegers is symbolic of his superiority. Of course, there's a whole fight scene that happens right after, but it's just a Mega mega kaiju ripping apart giant robots that cost hundreds of billions of dollars. It's such a dominant moment that you're never made to feel that the humans can come out on top. One look at the thing is more than enough to realize that you're dealing with a god-level threat, and if it wasn't for the film's questionable physics, there was no way this thing was gonna lose. Man, the first installment was so much better than this. Why did they have to ruin what could have been a legendary franchise? It's kinda apt that entry number 11 on a God Mode video has Optimus Prime slashing through 11 Decepticons in 1 business minute. Dark of the Moon showed us an overpowered version of the character who made Megatron look like a side quest. As expected, his moves are right up there with any other entity you can think of, and this scene in particular establishes why he'll always remain the peak example of giant robots. If you notice how he casually goes through all the Decepticons over here, it almost feels like he's playing a video game where he's restarting from the beginner stage after he reaches level 100. Truth be told, Optimus does get a bit scary when he's not in the mood to show mercy, so I did feel bad for those enemy bots, even though they're all serving the main villain. Sure, it might seem a bit out of character for a dude who wants to keep the peace, but hey, everyone has rage and it's better for him to let it out here than later when there are no bad guys left to fight him. Plus, you gotta love a guy who provides commentary right as he effects a kill. Welcome to the Zone of the Elites, and I'm picking things off with an entry from an otherwise questionable film. Not a lot of people really like the 1998 version of Godzilla, even though the movie went on to make big bucks at the box office. The primary reason for that was the creature design, which barely resembled anything close to the OG King of the Monsters. I mean, I get that the general audience likes slim celebrities, but Godzilla's the kind of guy who thrives on his plus-size figure. Anyway, I'm not here to criticize the film, but rather focus on that one moment where he totally flexes like a supreme being. Fans of the franchise might not have enjoyed it, but I personally thought the explosive breath was a great display of power, especially when you consider the fact that nothing is really visible. Bro's breath was so strong that it made a bunch of taxis and other vehicles explode instantly. I wonder if that's because of the radiation, or the fact that Godzilla's breath was so bad that the cars ended up exploding out of disgust. If you can make freaking Godzilla look like a weakling, then you get into my top 10, no questions asked. However, I will go on the record and say that the King of the Monsters isn't in his prime form and might actually be pretty tired from the constant rampaging and fighting with Kong 2. Bro didn't stop and was undefeated until he got to fight the real threat. Having said that, Mechagodzilla is a ridiculously overpowered beast who can make any monster sweat regardless of status. Even Kong couldn't take him down on his own until Godzilla landed some crucial assists. Sure, it's basically an angry Ghidorah controlling billions of dollars worth of tech and weaponry, but he definitely justifies his merit. If you consider the range of features that this dude has on him, he's probably got more range than the Autobots and the Jaegers combined. That'd actually be a pretty interesting matchup now, don't you think? He might not have done too well against his robotic counterpart in the previous entry, but the King of the Monsters has no worries when it comes to massive nuclear blasts like the two Mutos from his first film. Okay, maybe I should classify them as one massive beast and one decently sized monster. To be honest, I wasn't expecting too much from the male Muto, but he did end up giving a good fight, although he was ended in a jiffy thanks to Godzilla using his secret Iron Tail technique. That attack gave me total Charizard vibes, as did the final blast of atomic breath that Godzilla uses to end the female Muto. I swear if I had a beast like this in my Pokemon collection, then I would have become the master of the universe in no time at all. In all seriousness though, this was a dominating sequence that introduced us to a franchise which has expanded into another 4 movies and a TV show. Speaking of which, have you seen Monarch on Apple TV+? Let me know what you think of it in the comments below. This battle does end in defeat for Otachi, but that's not before it shows off some of the deadliest moves a kaiju can bring to the table. Gypsy Danger used a freaking Titanic-level ship as a baseball bat to whack Otachi, but that lasted all of 10 business seconds as the beast went on to display some deadly attacks. Now, this one's got the whole package, you see. Super strength, acid breath, a monster tail, and freaking wings too. It's a real shame Red Bull didn't end up using this scene for some kind of brand integration. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that Otachi is not your typical kaiju, and the powers on display here are dangerously close to a Category 5 threat. If you think about it, this was the fight that was worthy of being called a final battle. That boss kaiju at the end never really looked even half as threatening as Otachi. So Ghidorah was never going to be champion in this film, but his name does have the prefix of king, so it makes sense to let him hog some of the spotlight. For example, when he regenerates his head and calls out to all the other titans of the world, it totally gave God Mode vibes. I mean, those monsters look big enough to command their own armies, and they instantly followed Ghidorah's command as if he was their supreme leader. The dude, or should I say dudes, just had a massive fight against Godzilla, who was actually doing pretty well until the humans interfered and messed stuff up. Even after all those explosions and obstacles, the three-headed dragon stood tall and proudly proclaimed his dominance as the ultimate beast in the world. The cinematography here really made the whole sequence feel like a horror movie, and I totally loved it. This was the big ticket battle that everyone was waiting for, so it had to at least make the top 5. I really love this fight for 2 big reasons. The first one is that Kong puts up one heck of a fight against an opponent he's clearly outmatched by. Bro even made Godzilla go croc mode, which apparently means he's had enough and is really pissed off. The second one is that we finally get to see more variety in Godzilla's attacks. We've been treated to different moves like the Iron Tail I was talking about earlier, as they were sprinkled in throughout the previous 2 Godzilla movies. However, over here, he acts more animalistic while still using his atomic breath. He bites, he claws, he stomps. It's something I wish Toho would do with their version as well, because while the atomic breath is awesome, it kind of makes every fight feel the same, especially when he's just blasting it over and over again. Huge props to Kong though for making Godzilla activate God Mode against him. Bro ticked off the king of the monsters more than Ghidorah. Have lost against Godzilla, but King Kong is still the second best monster of the franchise. His battle against the main Skullcrawler was a treat to the eyes, and it showcased his intelligence as well. It's one thing to have the strength of a god, and a whole other thing to have the brains of one too. We saw him use it against Mecha Godzilla with the axe, but the first glimpse was here when he used the propeller against the Skullcrawler. Bro channeled his inner Mike Tyson to land a deadly uppercut and ended the beast in rather savage fashion. I've noticed that some people didn't realize what happened here, so allow me to explain. Kong was unable to open his hand because Weaver was in there, so moved his arm in a circular motion in order to wrap the Skullcrawler's tongue around it. He then yanked it out, which also pulled out its internal organs. Yeah, I know Brie Larson isn't on the same level as Naomi Watts, but at least she led to a brutal kill. Now this is probably the godliest team-up I've ever seen, and full points to Adam Wingard for choosing to go in this direction. He did admit that Godzilla would have given a much better fight if he was at full power, but letting Kong come in and affect the win was a brilliant move in the end. I mean, we all know that Mecha Godzilla is no small-time target, so seeing both Godzilla and Kong coming together to take him on was sheer fan service, and I loved it. Whether it was Kong saving Godzilla or even Godzilla helping out Kong by powering up his axe, everyone lost their minds watching this final battle because it helped the movie become a smash hit. I mean, the world was still recovering from the pandemic at the time, which makes the box office numbers even more impressive. Now we're all awaiting their epic reunion in the new empire. If we really want to talk about Kong taking the W, then look no further than the epic battle of 2005, where he takes out not 1, not 2, but 3 freaking V-Rexes. The fight is on such a scale that I can't really express myself in words. It's a feeling that just can't be replicated anymore. There's so much perfection in the conceptualizing and execution of the animation here. The large-scale body mechanics and the physicality are on point as well. Even the progression of the fight and the additional drama makes this whole sequence an example of phenomenal filmmaking, that too in 2005. Kong wasn't even able to use all his body parts here because he had Anne either in his palm or in his feet. The overall battle runs for more than 7 minutes, but that doesn't feel lengthy even for a second. Once again, my respect for Peter Jackson has been justified. Well, there was nothing else that even came close. I'd mentioned the moment where Ghidorah powered himself up with a power station in one of the earlier entries, and it was a pretty cool moment. However, when Godzilla powers up, he straight up absorbs a nuclear blast and ends up becoming so lethal that buildings melt in his mere presence. If this isn't what a god looks like, then we have different dictionaries, because damn, bro looks like he was the one who caused the Big Bang. He made it clear that he was ready to throw hands, but there was nothing that Ghidorah could do, even with his electrical power-up. What followed was total obliteration, and that's exactly why Godzilla will forever remain the true king of monsters. Hope you liked the video. Please subscribe to the TV region, and here's another video that I know you'll enjoy.